Hello there and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm filming this intro the night before the challenge I'm about to do because I just know that at 4 AM when I wake up for this, I am not going to be in the mood. So hello, that's what this is. So allow me to introduce myself. My name is Jack Edwards and I just completed my English literature degree. A couple of weeks ago I posted this video where I read only YouTuber books for 24 hours. 24 consecutive hours of just reading YouTuber books. And it was hell, to be honest. And so guess what? We're back to do it all over again. Last month, my own book was actually published. It's called The Universe, and it is the ultimate guide to university, and I still can't quite get my little head around that. Absolutely bonkers. And I'd like to think I'm not like other YouTube books. Mostly because I actually wrote mine. Wow, we're like 30 seconds in and the shade has started. I joke. And so, like I said, today we are back with another selection of YouTuber books. We've got it all going on right here. We've got Miranda Sings, we've got Jake Paul, we've got Connor Franta, we've got Gabbie Hanna. So, without further ado, I'm gonna get some sleep because tomorrow is gonna be a long old day. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'll see you at 4 AM.
On tonight's program, ladies and gentlemen, we have something that's gonna make you sick.
Okay, so I have a little tiny confession. This challenge was meant to start at 4 AM and I fully intended to wake up at 4. I set an alarm, the alarm went off, I did get out of bed, but then I snoozed it and now it's 10:30 AM. I don't want to talk about it. So we're just gonna start the challenge now and forget about having a sleeping pattern for the foreseeable future. So this is the timer. We're gonna press start and begin the 24-hour challenge. The first book I have to read is How to Be a Bawse? How to Be a Bawse by Lily Singh. See, the thing is, if you're American, this is How to Be a Boss. But if you're British, it's very much Bawse. Which I just think is poor planning, to be honest, because British people can't say that. Like, imagine if this was nominated for an award in the UK. I mean, bold of me to assume that this would be nominated for awards. But imagine a British presenter like Ruth Langsford being like, and the nominees are Lily Singh with How to Be a Bawse. So I'm gonna read that now. So I just made myself some breakfast whilst reading. So to be honest, I already feel kind of like a Bawse. Maybe Lily is rubbing off on me after all. Okay, 3 hours later and I've just finished How to Be a Bawse. I've definitely concluded after reading this that there are 2 words I never want to read ever again. One of them is Bawse, and the second one is F. Basically, throughout the book, in pretty much every single chapter, Lily at one point says, F this, F that, F having a plan B, F what people think. But it's always written as EFF, rather than just saying fuck. And I was like, come on Lily, just say it, just say fuck. I understand why books aimed at younger audiences are censored. And if there's one point in the book where the point is just perfectly made by using that word, so you censor it out to make sure it remains a PG book, fine. However, if you're going to refer to or insinuate that word every single chapter, just say it. Just say it, Lily. Maybe that is pedantic. This book is honestly, it's definitely written by Lily Singh, which I appreciate because some books are not written by the YouTuber themselves. Zoella, chesty cough going on, not corona. Aside from the things I mentioned, I did actually enjoy the writing style. There are lots of references to pop culture. It's definitely very relevant to her audience, but there's just so many analogies. Like, everything is an analogy and not everything needs to be. It's also very much what I would refer to as toxic positivity, and by that I mean it's overwhelmingly like rainbows and unicorns, like everything has to be perfect, and essentially it kind of advertises the view that if you're not seeing everything in a totally positive way, then you're seeing it in the wrong way. And I don't know necessarily if that is the best way to be. It was just a lot, and 3 hours of my life I will never get back. Speaking of which, we will move on to book number 2. Ow, bloody hell, that bed is not as bouncy as I thought it was gonna be. I'm getting the vibe that these are gonna be quite similar sort of books. This one is called Self-Help, and it is by the character Miranda Sings. I'm very intrigued, and I'm getting kind of cabin feverish, so I'm gonna go and sit outside for this one. Okay, I definitely made a mistake of reading this book in a public place because I am so nervous that someone will walk out and see me reading this. And honestly, I can't think of a single excuse which will help justify this. To be fair, this is a section I could actually really do with some help in. Did Miranda Sings predict the COVID outbreak? Okay, so I just finished reading Self-Help. Honestly, it took absolutely no time at all to get through this because there's actually very little in the book. There's lots of pages, but it's mostly just kind of pictures and a sentence that covers the whole page. This is daylight robbery. I won't lie, there's the occasional funny one-liner, but the funniest thing about this is the price. Can I just say, this is $12.99. Oh my god. And there's very little actually inside it. Okay, we are seconds away from hitting the 4-hour mark, and I'm moving on to a work in progress by Connor Franta. Now, I really liked Connor Franta's YouTube videos, but I'm always skeptical about someone who writes a memoir in their 20s. Because I'm like, have you lived long enough to write a memoir yet? The cover's very cool though. Yeah, to be honest, I've got high hopes for this one, so I'll let you know if it lets me down. Okay, so update. I went down to a study room to read the first 100 pages of a work in progress, and so far, out of those 100 pages, there's probably been like 2 interesting ones. I feel so bad saying that, and I really wanted to enjoy this, but it's quite a boring life, to be honest, that Connor Franta's had. There's this whole section about how he won prom king, and it was like the most mortifying experience of his whole life, and I just thought, what? What even was the point in that story? He talks about how he felt like he was gonna have his Mean Girls moment where Katie like breaks up the crown and throws it out into the crowd, but then he just doesn't do it. He just thought about it. I don't know, so far it's just been 100 pages of nothing. There is some photography, but it's kind of like Tumblr photography, you know, where someone would post a picture of their arm holding a pine cone and the background would be out of focus, and we'd be like, photography. It's that kind of photography. I feel horrible for just shitting all over it, but it's really just boring. Okay, so update. I've just finished this book, and honestly, it really picks up in the second half. Like, the second half of this book is good. There are some interesting observations and discussions. He talks a little bit about living alone and being a creative type and loneliness and that kind of thing, which actually I could really relate to because I've just moved alone. Yeah, the second half is actually worth it. So we are now nearly at the 7-hour mark, and that brings me on to the book I'm least looking forward to in this video. Jake Paul, You Gotta Want It. Honestly, there's nothing I want less. Okay, we're 1 page in, and I already hate it. The first section is called Me in About 6 Seconds, More or Less. Look, who's gonna read that in 6 seconds? It took me 6 seconds to decide that I hate it, so maybe Jake was right after all. So it starts by saying that he's 19 years old, and then it's like, you'll never see me in a club, you'll never see me drinking. Surely that's because legally you can't. That's the rule in America, right? We won't see you in a club, Jake, because the bouncers literally won't let you in. He then goes on to talk about how he hates reading and has only read 3 books in his life, so really looking forward to the rest of this. Oh my god, I can't believe how stupid this book is. Already on literal page 4, he's talking about being in a car with his brother and speeding, like literally breaking the law by going at 170 miles per hour, and he's like, this is how we should live our lives. What kind of advice is that? Okay, it's so orange in here right now because the sun is literally setting, and I just finished this book, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, but genuinely, this was the best book I've read so far today. It documents Jake Paul's rise to fame on Vine, which I just didn't really know that much about, and it's honestly fascinating to read. I'm sure he didn't actually write it. I reckon he probably found it fascinating to read as well, if he even did. Whoever did write it made it very accessible to read, but honestly, it was pretty interesting. No one is more surprised by that than I am. There you go, don't judge a book by its cover, or its back cover, one of the many just topless photos of Jake Paul for no apparent reason. So yeah, kind of surprised by that, not gonna lie. I got a cheeky little Chinese takeaway for myself. Can you believe that this time last year, I was working in China. I was working as an English teacher in China. That's crazy. You know what, maybe my eyes were a bit bigger than my belly. And since I've been reading now for 9 consecutive hours, I'm gonna give myself at least 10 or 15 minutes just to eat and get some energy back because it is draining. And then we'll see where we are after that. Okay, so I'm re-energized, and I think that's for the best because the next YouTuber book that we are encountering is Adultolescence by Gabbie Hanna, the final boss of YouTuber books. Let's just say I've heard a lot about this book and nothing positive. I've heard a lot of people refer to this as Tumblr poetry, sort of similar to the criticisms of Rupi Kaur. The thing is, right, it's not inherently bad just because it appeals to a wide audience. Like, if more simplistic, basic vocabulary and colloquialism appeals to you more and resonates with you more than, say, the poetry of John Milton, then it doesn't mean that it's less intellectual or less good. It's just different, and it's still poetry. People are often quick to dismiss things that appeal to a popular audience, for example, books or pop music. I think music's probably the best example. Like, often people who are into more alternative music are quite snobby towards pop music, and poetry is the same. If you write poems that can be understood by a mass audience, and that doesn't mean it's inherently bad, it just means that it's that type of poetry. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that, and now I'm gonna actually read it. Okay, we're at the 11-hour mark, and this book is done. Thank God. There's these mini sections which are sort of like a stream of consciousness and they're written in text talk. Thanks, I hate it. No, like seriously though, I hate it. Ever notice that the word synonym doesn't have a synonym? It literally does, and that word is equivalent. You're disgustingly perfect. Are you happy? Or are you not sad? Link in bio. So, yeah, no, this wasn't that great. As I said before, it's obviously very inspired by Bo Burnham and Rupi Kaur, but their poetry is very taut and they really think about the meaning behind every single word that they use, whereas this felt like a parody of that. It felt like it was more about trying to be clever than actually saying anything of value. It's also very like, I'm so quirky and just horrible, really. Oh, and also it's definitely not intentionally a parody of those other poets. It's like very much an accident. And the word dope was used way too many times for my liking. I felt like I was reading will.i.am's poetry book, not Gabbie Hanna's. The metaphors often feel very forced. Even at the end, there's a poem where she literally talks about how some of the poems come from her heart and some were just written to fill the book. I'm sure it will be someone's cup of tea and it might resonate with someone. Personally, I would rather drink Gone Off milk. I can't say that. So those are my thoughts on that book. And I actually only have one more to read. This has not taken 24 hours at all. It's actually only taken 11 hours and 8 minutes so far. So the last book is Shane Dawson's book. So I reckon, actually, we could make this a 12-hour challenge, which I wish I'd known that at the beginning of the day, so I would have felt much more enthusiastic about it. So let's go and grab the last book. I Hate My Selfie by Shane Dawson. Shane Dawson's career has been an absolute roller coaster, especially over the last few years. He went from being seen as very problematic to sort of redeeming himself with these documentaries, which mostly just consisted of him overreacting to pretty much everything and going, oh my fucking God, oh my fucking God. Pretty much anytime anything even tiny was revealed, and we all fell into the trap, and now he's being problematic again. So the others I felt kind of bad about ripping to shreds. This one, not so much. Okay, so this book is so freaking weird. There's a fair few slurs in it. There's a story about how Shane Dawson once catfished one of his friends at school so that they would send him a picture of their penis. If you're triggered by themes or language of sexual assault, then skip forward 30 seconds. But there's a section where he's talking about how he had long hair that kind of made him look like a girl, and he refers to himself as not the prettiest girl at prom, but pretty enough to get date raped. What the fuck? Honestly, this book is so weird, and I'm not a fan. We are done! Yes! Ah, thank God for that. So we can stop that. That is 12 hours on the clock of only reading YouTuber books, and I don't have to do that ever again. Suffice to say, I would not recommend this book unless you like jokes about paedophilia and abortion and that kind of thing. It wasn't really my cup of tea. Okay, what was the best and worst book that I read? I would say the Miranda Sings book was probably the worst. And the best, I actually can't believe I'm saying this, but this was honestly the one I enjoyed the most. And that's not even a compliment to the Jake Paul book, it's just a statement as to how low the standard was for these books. Like, the bar has been set 6 foot under. After reading both British and American YouTuber books, I can definitely say that the British ones were infinitely better. I hate to say it, I'm sorry to do this, but most of the books that I read today were just crap, to be honest. And this is a day in my life that I will just never get back. But thank you for spending it with me. And now I guess I've read these books, so you don't have to. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a big old thumbs up and subscribe for more from me down below. If there's any chance this video has somehow whet your appetite for YouTuber books, then mine is officially available now. And I would like to think that it's full of really useful advice for going to university, but you could be the judge of that. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you check out my other video where I read British YouTuber books, and until next time, I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.
In case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.